have a great presentation ahead with Russell and Jerry about AI and the legal profession.
Welcome, Jerry. Good to see you.
Hey, Russ. Nice to see you again.
Thanks, Russ, and thanks, Jerry, for joining us again for this presentation. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. I know there's so many advances that keep happening with AI, so I'm sure you have some really great updates for us today. So looking forward to that. So on the agenda today, we have what is AI, recent progress, general AI engines versus specific ones, prompt engineering and plugins, and we'll have a DocEquity demonstration by Jerry and a member of his team as well. We'll get into why should lawyers and clients care. We'll also talk about improved service, efficiencies, and access to justice. And as always, please send in your questions. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jerry Zhao, who is the CEO of DocEquity, who is the generous sponsor of this event, as I mentioned. We'd like to once again thank DocEquity for their $5,000 donations toward the Abrigo Center Violence Against Women. As DocEquity CEO, he drives the company's vision for the next generation of work and knowledge automation. Prior to DocEquity, Jerry led product teams at Microsoft, building productivity experiences for knowledge workers on the cutting edge of AI and interactive technologies. Jerry currently resides in Seattle, Washington, with his wife and daughters, as well as their Great Pyrenees Lyra. And of course, we have Russell returning, and he will be having a discussion at length about new advances in AI. We did a couple of these programs with Jerry earlier this year, but like I said earlier, I'm sure you guys have lots of new things to talk about too. So I'll let you take it away, Russ.
Let's start with the poll and find out what our audience is thinking. So we always want to find out, know where your head's at, what you think of the subject matter, today's AI. So poll number one, have you heard of artificial intelligence being used in the context of family law cases before? And while we're doing that poll, Jerry, I'm just going to ask you some questions, or maybe one question.
Sure.
All right, here's one that came in. Can AI systems be customized or fine-tuned to meet specific needs and preferences of law firms? I think I know the answer to this, but what do you think? Can you customize this AI software?
Yeah, the field has been advancing really quickly, and there's kind of two big ideas. And just to clarify the word AI, right? When it's a really big field. AI is everything from, and we've talked about this before, Russ, where it's anything from self-driving cars to ChatGPT. So when we're talking about AI customization for lawyers, we're probably more focused on large language models. And they're right now, what we're seeing in the market, including ourselves, is that you can easily adapt these for certain contexts, like being able to practice in family law or doing contract law. And there's kind of two approaches there. One approach is to just be able to use what we call prompt engineering, which is essentially having us be able to set the conversation topics that the bot wants to have before having it interact with the end user, which are lawyers. The second approach is to actually fine tune and train it on a certain amount of data that the law firm has. The second approach so far is still something relatively aspirational in this field, just because the generalized models are so powerful that people haven't really found a need to really fine tune these. But as we progress over the next couple of years, we think that will change.
Yeah, and if you think, you're exactly right, Jerry. Virtual assistants, social media feeds, email filters, online shopping, navigation, digital assistants. We're using AI already. We just may not know it. But let's see what are these things with respect to family law cases. All right, so 62% have heard of it being used already. 38% no. So kind of an interesting split there. We have a somewhat familiar, or people are hearing about it. So let's talk about AI. Nobody really, the people who are passionate about it know about it, but the average person going through a separation or a divorce, or a lawyer practicing law, may not know exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about AI and the legal profession. So let's talk about that, Jerry. What are we talking about when we talk about AI?
So I think there's kind of two parts of AI that has impacted lawyers or will impact lawyers a lot over the next few years, right? So, and just to take a step back in history, traditionally when we talk about AI, it's really a lot of math. It's really like the art of data science, of being able to approximate certain tasks that humans do, and then being able to use computers to go do that as well. So if you think about what computers are really good at, they're really good at math. So, you know, for example, you may have seen like a robot play ping pong, or be able to see cars drive by themselves. That's a lot of modeling the world, approximating, and things like that. And over the last couple of years, there's been this emergence of large language models. A lot of this is because of the widely available compute powers that's now available. So what large language models do is they are now able to approximate words. And that's really exciting, especially for occupations that deal primarily with words. So there's a couple ways that AI is helpful there. One of them is that because these language models are trained on trillions of parameters, essentially the entire internet of cleaned up data, they're really good at answering questions. So you can ask all sorts of questions about, like, you know, what are the precedents? How is the legal field working? And they are general models, so they do their best job in terms of answering questions, but they may not know the really specific knowledge in a particular jurisdiction. The second part, which DocEquity focuses on, that we're excited about, is it's also really good at automation. So you can ask it to do tasks, right? So an example of that would be you can pass in a contract, and you can ask you can ask this large language model summaries and information about the contract, or redraft it, or add a new clause, or things like that. So we frequently get these two kind of mixed up into one idea, because it is using the same technology, but there are two fundamentally different types of tasks that we're asking AI to do today.
And I find, you know, word crafting is a real strength. Also finding blind spots is really helpful. So if I have a factum, or if I'm making an argument in motions court, or even if I'm doing a collaborative file, I'll say, what are the blind spots in this argument, or what would opposing counsel argue? You don't come up, you know, with 3 or 4 items that I haven't thought about before. I may ignore it, or they may be really good arguments, and I have to turn my mind to it and prepare for it, because there's a good chance the judges can ask me those questions. So it's really useful for blind spots. But let's go back to our audience. Let's ask another poll and get a sense as to where we're at. Are you using AI in your legal practice? Now, I want to get to another question for you, Jerry. I know you said it's really good at organizing documents. We're using your software. My team's using your software to help with financial statements. We'll get to that a little bit later. But, you know, a client brings in a box of documents. It takes a couple of days to go through it. Now we can have AI do it. But let's do this. Just a bit of a teaser, but let's go to another audience questions. What do legal professionals face when integrating AI tools into the workflow? And how can they effectively manage the transition to AI-assisted work? I guess part of this is change management. But what should legal professionals and law firms be expecting?
Well, Russ, this is something that I think every big firm—
We're struggling with it right now.
Yeah, like everyone is struggling with it. All of our customers have certain issues with this. And I think the idea here is just really that there's actually 2 layers of what we call knowledge work, right? So back in the day when I was at Microsoft, we built the Office platform, and that essentially all of our customers were called information workers or knowledge workers. But in reality, today for the world of AI, there's actually really the person who manages the knowledge work and the laborer that does the work itself. And AI is going to take away a lot of the actual labor of looking through something, or like the deterministic tasks that people understand. So that transition is going to be hard to manage, but I also think that it provides more time for staff to focus on the human interactions, which is why clients kind of seek this out in the first place. And that's probably a different topic that we're bleeding into, Rust, but the short answer there is that we think that the this change is going to take away a lot of the routine tasks that are no longer needed.
A lot of the pain points, right? The stuff we don't like doing or we're not going to get paid to do, it's going to make us more efficient. I agree. That's a great point, Jerry. All right, let's see what our audience is thinking. Are you using AI in practice? No, 62%. Yeah, I'm not sure. We could be using 15%. We're probably using it and don't even know about it, right? Yes, just starting at 15%. Yes, 100% all in, early adopters and others. So you can put that in the chat box. And I guess, you know, it wasn't too long ago we transitioned to paper and now we have digital files. But I still remember some law clerks and some lawyers that would hide files. They want to hold on to that paper. They would literally hide files in their office because they needed that security blanket, right? And that's sort of the adoption to change mindset. Some are quick, some are slower. You know, some people go out and get the newest iPhone and other people don't care. So let's talk about some recent progress. So we've, you know, ChatGPT came out, you know, last December. GPT-4 is out. It seems like the AI is growing by leaps and bounds. Jerry, what are you seeing at your end?
Well, I really like talking about this topic because I feel like large language models are one of those things that everyone can easily understand and relate to. So one of the things that's changed in the last 6 months is the wide availability of GPT-4. And GPT-4 is, you know, this new model that OpenAI built. And just to give you a little bit of context into how you measure these things, aside from the accuracy and the ability and the knowledge, it's really about how much these models can remember, and also basically what different types of data these models can ingest. So, you know, just a couple years ago, Google came out with this, what they call the bidirectional transformer, which is like the most basic language model. And the only thing it could remember was like 500 words. And it wasn't really good at being able to respond to those. And GPT-4, just out of the box, can remember something like 8,000 words, right? And now the new models that startups like ours are starting to get access to, they can remember something like 32,000 words, and Cloud from Anthropic can remember something like 100,000 words. So now the memory is quite big. So you can imagine, like, you could potentially pass in like all the information from your case, and you can start asking questions about it. And this isn't information the language model has itself, right? So you're going to be able to search against it, and it can form better answers for you than what you know, traditional search engines would be able to do for this type of data. So that's super exciting. The second part is just the idea of having a multimodal model. That's something that, you know, everyone's been talking about and touting, but actually, if you sign up for, you know, the beta for just OpenAI today and go play with it, it's quite powerful. Like, you can take a picture of anything, and then it's going to be able to recognize that, and then you can use it in a prompt. So a great example of this is, like, you can go into a restaurant, take a picture of a menu. It can be in Japanese or Spanish or anything else, and you'll be able to translate that into a pretty good English version of that thing. These things are interesting as toys in terms of just us playing with them in our app, but as compute becomes more widely available, you can imagine how, like, as you upload things into your share file, or as you process data from clients, there's hundreds of these little AI routines that are processing this data and analyzing it for you before you even need to look at it. So you get really nice analysis from this.
Yeah, and I know we're kind of talking high level here. Shannon, if you can drop into the link, our earlier introductions to AI, where we break it down even further, that Jerry and I did. So we'll give for our audience members, if you're not understanding all the languages that we're using or some of the terms, we'll give you some resources so you can find that. And we did just have 2 more donations come in. So thank you for that. I really appreciate everybody. One anonymous and the other one was Susan. So thank you, Susan, for supporting our charity. So let's go next to general AI versus specific ones. So what's the difference, Jerry, and what does our audience need to know? Remember, we've got people going through separation and divorce, legal professionals of all types, and members of the public in our audience.
So this has like a kind of a slight historical tinge to it, which is, probably about 6 months ago, a lot of companies starting up because they saw that OpenAI built this amazing engine, and there's a couple other big companies, including Google and Anthropic and Amazon, that have started building general AI engines. On the other side of things, people thought that they could train these models on specific data, and from the really specific data, they could get basically chatbots or AI engines that were really good at certain topics. So far, what we've seen is that the AI engines themselves that are general are actually so much better just because these companies are funded in much larger ways than the really specific engines out there. That being said, you can take these general AI engines and fine tune them based off of like the tasks, for example, in family law or other types of practice areas, and then they actually become really good at certain things. So a great example of this is what we call like classifiers, right? You can teach a language model to look at a document and tell you whether this document contains certain types of financial data, or this document contains certain types of like healthcare data, and you can be able to sort and organize and extract information by training these engines to be a lot more powerful. But for the actual AI models that end users like lawyers and customers and clients interact with, they generally interact with general AI engines just because they're so much more powerful with basically an order of magnitude number of more parameters that make them a lot smarter than the specific ones.
Okay, so let's talk about prompt engineering. So I guess this is this whole idea, garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're using an AI, and if it's not a custom software that's designed for your law firm or your service, prompt engineering and plugins are important. So what do these terms mean, and how do we approach prompt engineering, Jerry?
So prompt engineering is a pretty big idea, and it kind of reminds me of this Terry Pratchett books, if you've ever read them, Russ, where it's like they say that the universe is turtles all the way down. Well, large language models are prompt engineering all the way down, which is essentially like if you ever play with ChatGPT and you try to ask it a question that it doesn't know, it'll say something like, oh, I don't know how to do this, right? Because all these people complain about hallucinations. Well, what they did was they actually prompt engineered their own like language model so that there are a bunch of prompts before it even reaches the end user. But essentially, the idea of prompt engineering is that since you can talk to the language models themselves, you can write really specific commands that make it do really smart things for you. There's all sorts of really cool stuff you can do with it. Like recently, some of the discoveries that people have made is that there's something called chain of thinking, which is like you can essentially say something logical, like, well, if A equals B and B equals C and C equals D, then what does this mean? And it's able to kind of follow that line of thinking and be able to give you an answer. Another example of this is there's really simple ways of training AI models, what we call few-shot learning, which is like, well, this person asked this question and you should answer it this way. This person asked this question, you should answer it this way. So now what's the answer to this one, right? So there's a lot of ways you can manipulate prompts in order to get the language model to do what you want. And a lot of this, if you guys spend some time reading, are really accessible to anyone that wants to use them. And there's always prompts that you can reuse for collaboration or new marketing ideas or all sorts of ways that these language models can generate new ideas and new analysis for your practice area in day-to-day.
The other thing I find really powerful, Jerry, is, give me, you may give it a prompt and say, do it in the style of, Russell Alexander, or do it in the style of Jerry. So what's really powerful is now you have the answer in the style that you would present it. So for a firm like mine, when we're doing pleadings and we're using AI, we have 22, 23 associate lawyers. Each lawyer has their own voice and their own style. So we can train it and say, okay, do this pleading in the style of Michelle Monchin, and it'll have her voice and her syntax. And this is really incredibly powerful stuff. But let's take a look. Let's do a demo. And I know we're going to bring Ed on, who's with DocEquity. And let's see what we're talking about. Hi, Ed. Welcome to the program.
Thanks, Russ. Good to be with you. The conversation that we've just had is a fantastic warm-up act to walking you through the solutions that we have at DocEquity, and of course, utilizing AI and automation. Just to kind of sort of bring it back down to basics in terms of what we do, and in the conversation you've just heard, we help with data gathering, intake, gathering financial data, data analysis, so disclosure insights and putting disclosure briefs together. And then further down the track, we have help with drafting pleadings. So all exciting things, and I'll walk you through each step of those to show you how we do it. So if I just share my screen, well, let me just find the right screen.
While you're pulling up your screen, I know I see some audience questions coming in. I know a lot of current service providers are also starting to, quickly try to get ahead of the AI curve. LexisNexis, Westlaw, other service providers. So, a traditional research at the library is going to be quite different 4 months, 6 months, a year from now, in terms of these legal services, in terms of them relying on AI to produce this stuff. But I see you've got your screen up.
Technology, eh? Wonderful. So I'm sharing my screen now, and what you're seeing here is a questionnaire.
Can we make it a little bit larger, Ed?
Or larger, yeah, absolutely.
Just a little bit, go full screen.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I'll take it back to the beginning. What you're seeing.
Maybe a bit more.
I'm sorry, I can't. Let me see if I can get it any.
Well, I guess we can adjust. You can just, for everybody in the audience, you can go to the top and adjust your view options to make it fit your screen. So if you want it bigger, audience members, you can go to the view option at the top of your screen and adjust. Okay, we're good. Thank you.
Thanks, Russ. So what you see here is a questionnaire that's been built out for putting together the financial statement. So this is a client-facing, user-friendly version of the 13.1 for those family practitioners here in Ontario. And as they're going through, they're also able to upload relevant documents. They're guided through as well. And in when they're putting in their sort of address and things like that, those are smart fields. So the address will sort of formulate for them nice and easily. So once they go through the form and they submit it, it'll be passed back to the law firm, where they can then choose to map it on to the output they want to. So we've done a financial questionnaire. So of course we're going to
Kurt, can I just slow you down?
Yeah.
So just so our audience will know, the clients fill out sort of an intake form or questionnaire, and that goes in the system, and then this document auto populates. Is that right?
Exactly right. Yeah.
So you're not doing any additional work. The client's already put the data in, and it just grabs it.
Exactly. And one of the things about in my last job, we had a beautiful client-facing intake form that gathered the data, but we didn't do anything more with it. And the solution that DocEquity has here is it takes that data, it creates a questionnaire that's easy to use for a client, that is online, that they can use on their smartphone, tablet, computer, and then it maps it onto the output that the lawyer wants. So it saves that rekeying of data time, and ensures that there's no room for human error, at least as long as the clients input the data correctly. And then for the family law practitioner, they can then work in the form, as you can see here, because the data has been carried across beautifully by DocEquity. And then you can work within this form, as you can see, and you've got the smart fields as well. So they've got the drop down, so you can choose certain elements as required. And on the left-hand side, you have a dashboard that you can work in as well. And once we're ready to convert this to a Word docx format, we can do that and then serve with the court on the other side. So that's something that is as I said, something that I hear so often with family law practitioners, a real pain point for those practitioners and clients doing the task. So a real benefit to clients and family lawyers. So we're really excited about that. The next step in the process for somebody going through a divorce would be to provide their disclosure and have it put together in a brief format. And for if we were doing it without
that's the client coming in with the banker's box, and some of the credit card statements have coffee stains on, and they're all shuffled together, and they go, here, right? And then the law clerk or the lawyer's got to spend 2 days shuffling through this, right? That's what we're talking about.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right. You're having to go page by page, ensuring all the numbers and the dates match, and the numbers match, and it's all organized, and we have to put that in an order so that we can then do something with it. So where AI and automation can assist here again is in that analysis, organizing it and ensuring that we're not missing anything. And I know from my own days in practice that it's another area which is super prone to human error because it's so manual, it takes so long. You start to glaze over a little bit when you're turning the pages over. Of course, technology doesn't glaze over. So what you're seeing here is that we're uploading the documents into the system and we're asking the AI questions. We're bounding the AI to it and we're saying, do the account numbers match? Do the names match? Do the values match? And so on. And we can ask other questions of this, particularly perhaps we're in a highly conflict case, and there's worries about hidden accounts or worries about trying to get rid of cash or spending money on a new girlfriend. These are the things we can ask of the data, and the video is passing through quickly, so I'll just slow it down and
let's take a look at this disclosure brief, because a lot of value in this, and my law clerks loved the disclosure brief. We had a trial in the spring sittings before AI. My senior law clerk took 3 days to assemble the disclosure brief for the court. We post trial, we had another one come up. We used AI. It was literally minutes, 2 days in the boardroom, assembling this particular disclosure brief. All the professionals have done this. We've got the tabs and this and that, but now we can hyperlink it and file it online with the court. But sorry to jump in. I'm excited about this one because I hear great feedback from my team.
And I agree. Like the organization of taking, as you put it, Russ, those coffee stain documents, taking that set of documents and organizing it into a PDF, bookmarked and linked and indexed format. That's wonderful in itself. And as you can see, it's creating that for the firm. What we also do is provide the firm with an executive summary showing all the data that is missing, any red flags, any discrepancies. So you can take that and you can pass it to your client and say, we still need this information. We can also pass through the other side's disclosure and ensure that we have everything we need there. So I'm going to turn to the sort of the next level of partnership that we have at DocEquity. But Russ, I'm just checking in with you that there's anything I haven't missed on that on those two elements.
No, there's a lot here, and I know my audience is going to have more questions. If they want to learn more, what do they do? Maybe Shannon, you can put the information in the chat, or she might have already done it. I'm sure she did. So let's press on. Shannon, if it's not there, put a link where we can learn more about these programs.
Absolutely. Yeah, you can reach out to us and we can chat further. So what I'm going to show you now is what I sort of mentioned at the top, where AI and DocEquity can assist in drafting documents. And what the example I'm going to show you here is in pleadings. So for our sort of early adopters, and there's still space for a few more, we have created essentially an ecosystem where we house all of the client's data, and we can do so much with it. So we've got their intake information, we've got their financial information, And what we're doing here is we're asking the client in their own words to tell them a story, tell us what the outcomes they're looking to achieve. So they can write in, and in this case, they want a divorce, they have children, and what the AI is doing is taking that data and it's providing a list of the claims that are relevant to this person's case. So it's drafting them away, and what it's going to do here is going to leapfrog from that to draft out the order according to the law firm's own templates and precedents. So it's in their style, and then it's going to leapfrog from here to start drafting the pleadings, again, in the firm's own style, and use all the data that we have in-house based on those intake questionnaires, the financial statement, and draft out the pleading for the law firm. So, pretty exciting and incredible stuff. And that's sort of where we're kind of taking this AI journey into family law.
Sorry, is that how quickly it drafts it? Like I was seeing it just firing out.
Yeah, I find it quite a beautiful thing to see it sort of streaming away. And that's sort of it doing it in real time. And if anybody here has played with ChatGPT, it's sort of similar kind of streaming format where it's sort of thinking and writing down its answer in a matter of seconds.
Now, these are just a few examples. You have other modules for reporting letters and other steps as well. Is that right?
Yeah, and something that may have been missed in what I was saying at the beginning is that when you have the ability to create a custom intake questionnaire or a questionnaire that however the law firm envisaged it and map it onto any kind of output like a closing letter, something I've heard somebody, and I'm currently in the UK and I've been showing this to the UK firms, something that lawyers here find rather annoying to do is draft instructions to counsel. And all of the people here thought, well, this would be perfect for that because you've got all the data and it would do that task nice and easily.
Yeah, it is. It's amazing, right? And there's this raises lots of questions, but let's, thank you, Ed. And if you want to stay on, please do. Let's find out what our audience is thinking. Let's run a poll question because we're getting lots of questions coming in, but let's just do a poll-wide view of our audience's take on this. So our next poll is going to be, should AI be subject to rules forbidding the unauthorized practice of law? So we'll see what our audience thinks of that question. But in the meantime, I'm getting lots of questions coming in here. Please keep your questions coming in. They're fantastic. What about, and I don't know the answer to this, integrating DocEquity with existing platforms? Like, how does that work? Like Word, for example, or whatever you're using.
So there's a couple things. We are fully integrated with a few practice management systems, and we're continuously adding more. So as new customers are interested in them, we'll continue to integrate these, and they're pretty quick to add. So we're constantly adding new ones. For data formats like Word or DocX, we're fully integrated with that. So any document you generate, you can download as a Word document. You can even re-upload as a Word document if you want to go and continuously edit it with AI as well. So, and we're adding new capabilities around new formats such as PDFs, this quarter.
Excellent. All right, let's see what our audience is thinking about unauthorized practice of law. If they have any issues with that, we'll get those poll results. Yes, definitely if it's being used by a non-lawyer. No, if it's being used and supervised by a licensed lawyer. I think of it as, DivorceMate or Quick Law or any other program that we're using is commonplace. And a lot of those have AI built into it. Yes, subject to proper enforcement and other 14%. You can put that into the chat box. So let's talk, or Q&A, let's just talk quickly about intake forms. I get asked this question a lot when I present. And a lot of lawyers don't have intake forms, right? They do their initial consultation, and that is their intake, right? They ask the questions. I find it's helpful to, get the data separation, get the data marriage, find out the kids' names, find out the relationship dates, general review of asset incomes. These are the first 20 minutes of most lawyers' consultations. And then get into goals and interests and legal options and legal advice. But by using a proper intake form, I can save that 30 minutes, maybe ask the client for some documents that might be missing, like an existing agreement, a parenting agreement, or court order. Read that before the client comes in. So the client, I can now focus exactly on what their legal needs are. It becomes much more efficient. But Ed or Jerry, how do you guys offer intake forms? How are you using it? How's it look? What's the client experience like at their end?
Ed, do you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, in Ontario, we have a standard out-of-the-box intake form that firms can use. You can also customize it as well. And I think, Russ, just to follow on from what you're saying about the use of intake forms, when I was practicing, I used to say to a client, give me a paragraph so I know what I'm walking into. But invariably, it kind of, without guardrails, clients would just provide what they felt was relevant, and as family practitioners, some stuff is, some stuff goes into other areas which are helpful for the background. But I think from what I sort of experienced, what I've heard from lawyers using online intake forms and intelligent intake forms, is it just allows for a much more the ability to build rapport much quicker. You can walk into that conversation and touch on the biggest concerns that clients are facing right away, so that you're not touching on them, an hour later, where they're probably exhausted from listening to, how the law applies to their case. And really get into why they're arriving, rather than asking what some lawyer once said to me, tombstone questions. What are your children's names? What's the value of the family car? Let's get into the issues and let's chart a way forward. And using these intake tools, I think clients are more and more used to it.
And clients like it because they can start thinking through these issues, getting the information to make the most out of their first appointment with their lawyer. Whether or not they retain them, they're going to have a much more meaningful appointment if they can have an interview where the lawyer has that background information already.
And
Absolutely.
one thing that will add is that DocEquity tries to capture all that data up front, right? So if you fill out an intake form with DocEquity, then all that data is in the system for the AI to use and for fields to map. And progressively, the case gathers more and more information so that more and more of the case can be automated as the case continues through the progression of its life cycle.
Yeah, Shannon, let's run poll 4. And I want to talk about some objections that I see in my own firm and from the profession. And there's lots of questions coming in from our audience. I want to thank our audience for their questions. So this poll is, will AI improve or eliminate the legal profession as we know it? Sounds a little bit dramatic. Job losses is a really big objection and change. But let's just talk about safety and protecting client data. What safeguards has DocEquity put in? Because we have a duty to maintain our clients, their client privilege, their data, and we hear occasionally something going wrong once in a while with AI hallucinating. What safeguards do you guys have in place to address these objections?
Well, I'll start with the first common piece of wisdom everyone may have heard, which is you should never put client data into ChatGPT. ChatGPT has an end user license agreement that essentially gives them free rein to train their models based on whatever you provide them. DocEquity hosts all of our data in Azure. Not only are we compliant with local rules, we also deal with tremendous amount of secure data from financials to medical data. And all of this is never saved. We never train our models based off of any of the data that customers are using, and it's end-to-end encrypted. And specifically, Russ, as we have increased our presence in Canada, we're now creating new servers in Canada data centers, and all the language models themselves are actually hosted in Canada as well to be compliant with local rules as well.
Well, that's great. Not a lot of people know about the Patriot Act, but that's US legislation. So sometimes our insurers and our regulators want us to make sure that our clients' data is maintained in Canada, so it's not subject to some US surveillance. So that's good to know. Did you want to add? Well, let's see what our poll results, but did you want to add anything to that, Ed?
No, I think most law firms these days use technology, whether it's Clio, whether it's DivorceMate, and with all of these companies just like ours, there are privacy and just agreements and clauses in those agreements to take care of that data. So it's the biggest factor for us to ensure that it's safety.
So improve or eliminate, improve access to justice, 41%, reduce costs, 51%. Getting lots of questions about how do we build this out, block fees, hourly rate. We're, spent an hour talking about that. It will make lawyers obsolete, 8%. Increase the importance and necessity of human lawyers, 18%. Yeah, you want a hand on that rudder steering that ship. That's a good point. Cannot replace human judgment, compassion, and empathy. That's right. You're still going to need the tissue box for your client who's going to be crying from time to time. But the saying I have heard, and maybe I can get you guys to comment on this, nobody's going to lose their job to AI, right? That's, the media kind of building up the hype. AI is going to kill all lawyers and whatever. But you may lose your job to somebody using AI because they're going to become more efficient. They're going to be able to charge probably a different rate, or maybe even offer blocked fee services or unbundled services. But where do you see about lawyers who are not going to adopt quickly to AI? What's your prediction on that? Anybody want to take a crack at that one?
Ed, you want to give that one a shot?
Sure. Well, I think the way I see it is that, and as we've shown, AI and automation will help with the data gathering, analysis, and down the track drafting. And what that will allow lawyers and family law practitioners to do is focus on strategy, focus on client care, essentially what clients want. That's what they want their money to be going towards. And that's really, in all jurisdictions, that's we're bound by that ethical sort of conduct requirement, which is to use technology to be efficient and advance our clients' cases in the best way possible. I think, at the moment, there's all these opportunities. We're still learning so much about this, of course. But the people that start to explore it, start to play around with it in a safe way, will be the ones who learn the opportunities. And I sort of boil this down to having a growth mindset as opposed to a fixed mindset. I think a fixed mindset, stuck on the way we've done things for years and years and years. But if we have a growth mindset, we're open to trying these things out. You'll see that there are opportunities and ways that we can work that serve our clients better.
And I'm just thinking of the silver linings we gained during the pandemic, right? We had a justice system for 200 years based on paper. We had to pivot to digital. We were able to conduct hearings by Zoom. So that made lawyers more efficient. We can service more families, help more clients. It extended the client's legal budget because they're not paying their lawyer to go to 3 or 4 full-day court hearings while they wait around. They can go to the hearing for 45 minutes and then log off Zoom and go help another family. I see something similar to what you're presenting in the sense that this financial statement and document brief, which would take 2-3 days, is now down to 30-40 minutes. So that enables us to help other families and be more efficient. None of the lawyers I know went bankrupt or went broke because they can't sit around in court for 6 hours. They worked on other cases that were equally as pressing. They were able to get more clients in. So I'm optimistic. But I want to take an audience question that came in here, just a practical one. Is the data taken from how's the data taken from scanned documents? The client sends you the documents by email or download them. How do you integrate that information into DocEquity in the financial statement?
So we gather all the documents, whether it's through a connector to your practice management system or uploaded through a questionnaire. And what happens on the technical side, which is quite detailed, is that we will use our own industry-leading OCR to rescan everything and extract all that data, whether it is taken by a phone or whether it's directly downloaded from a bank. So all of that is unified together before we perform all the analysis and work.
Okay, that's great to know. Let's go to our next poll. We're getting lots of questions coming in. Thank you. We're going to try to answer as many as we can. And this will probably be the final poll today of this presentation. So I want to thank everybody for participating. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about AI in legal professional? I think everybody knows how I feel about it. But let's see what our panel, our audience thinks. Jerry, you want to go first? Optimistic, pessimistic, or you want to wait for the poll results?
I'll go. I'm super optimistic. I mean, the way I think about it is that we've been struggling in the field of computing to be able to develop software that allows you to automate words for the longest time. And this is a revolution that will kind of help us take this to kind of new heights. And for the legal profession itself, you know, the ways that I think of all my interactions with lawyers have always been very personal, right? With where we need help for some type of interaction with the law. So it's going to give back a lot more time for lawyers to serve clients and remove all the unnecessary busy work that I think no one really enjoys in the first place.
Okay. Ed, thoughts?
It won't be a surprise that I'm also optimistic. I think, you know, I speak to lawyers all day long, and I think we're finally catching up. Technology is finally catching up with what lawyers and their clients want to happen with technology, which is data seamlessly moving into the documents, so there's no rekeying of data, as we showed. And as I said as well, you know, I remember a client saying exactly that. You know, I want you to be focusing on strategy. I don't want you to be wasting your time in this this document. Like, I'll try my hardest to help you, but you know, focus on the strategy. Like, you know, let me to the end of that tunnel where I can see the light.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what our audience thinks. If they're as equally optimistic as the three of us. Poll results are coming in. Yeah, 52% optimistic. You've converted some, maybe pessimistic, 7%, both 33%, neither. Wow, that's 8%. Whatever happens, happens, I guess, sort of a, I don't know what to think of the neither, but it's a neither. Okay, so that's it for poll questions. Let's go to some closing comments, and then we're going to take some audience questions. Let's start off with Ed, closing comments. And thank you for the presentation, Ed. That was fantastic to actually see it in action and see how quickly the program populates the forms.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And I think from my perspective, with these types of technologies, which are, you know, which we're digesting, I'm just excited to have these conversations with practitioners and kind of and open out the conversation. You know, go through the you know, some of the objections that people might have to these things and talk through them, and get to the point where people feel comfortable to explore it, because the legal profession hasn't been, you know, notorious for being forward thinking. Generally, we're very conservative. That's the way we've been trained. But I think, you know, we're here to have that dialogue with people and to create the way forward to utilize these technologies in a safe way, and a way that allows people to really help clients in the most efficient and thoughtful way.
Agreed. Jerry, any final thoughts?
The only thing I'll add to that is that we are really happy to collaborate with lawyers and learn their pain points in their day-to-day. And Russ, just working with your firm has been an incredible learning process for us as well. So I view, and I think Ed does too, that we're just getting started, and some of these things that we've shown you are things that are just the tip of the iceberg. And as we get deeper into the pain points of practitioners, and as the technology improves itself, we anticipate a lot more exciting features in the future as well.
Yeah, and there's lots of discussion about block fees, billable hours, how are people going to make money out of this, rules of professional conduct governing lawyers. My view, if we can become more efficient, similar to the silver linings I talked about during the pandemic, digital filing of court forms, Zoom hearings, things of this nature, that, we're in a profession that has a duty to serve our clients. And this means we're going to be able to serve and help more clients and more families obtain success. So if this technology enables us to do that, that means we can help more people. So that's my optimistic view. But I know Shannon's coming on with a couple more questions from our audience. They've been coming in fast and quick, and magically she appears. Welcome back, Shannon.
Hi, thank you. Thanks so much, Jerry and Ed, for sharing that. It's really exciting to see the advances that you're making in this field, and excited to see what's to come. And I know our audiences as well, because as Russ mentioned, we have lots of questions coming in, a lot specifically about DocEquity, which I'm sure after the program we'll be providing show notes. So I'll make sure that you have all the information you need to connect with DocEquity following this. But we just had some other questions more specific to AI that I'm going to go through. So how do AI-driven chatbots and virtual assistants for legal services interact with clients, answer their legal queries, and provide legal information while maintaining compliance with legal ethics and confidentiality rules?
Yeah, that's
so Jerry, chatbots, you see them everywhere, right?
Yep.
What about lawyers using chatbots? What do you see happening there?
Well, there's a couple places where chatbots are going to be really helpful, right? One of them is that they're probably going to be the first line of triaging for clients with questions about their case information. So there's probably the easiest thing to think about around that is being able to provide case information that's completely digitized, that when clients want to know the progress or what's going on, instead of having to email the lawyer and getting a response in a day or two, they can get an immediate answer from just the chatbot itself. The second part is how lawyers can interact with chatbots themselves to get access to client information. Most lawyers have, 30 files open at any given time. So just prepping for trial or understanding a case before a conversation can be time consuming. So being able to have a conversation with a chatbot to get this information really quickly is going to be quite helpful.
And you can put them on your website too, right? There's the late night tire kickers that want to find out about your firm, but even before they fill out a form or make contact, you can have a chatbot answer questions about the particular law firm. Is that right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for that, Shannon. Any more?
Time for maybe one more here. So what types of machine learning algorithms are commonly used in AI applications for legal purposes, and how are they trained on legal data?
Oh, that's a deep one. Yeah,
that's
so there's
another hour right there, but
yeah, right. We could create another show for that one, Russ. But just basically, and we touched on this a little bit, right? It's most of the most interesting machine learning applications are around large language models, which are really training words. And how they're trained is this really very simple but very powerful way of hiding some words, having the model guess whether that word's correct or not. And when it's able to guess it, then it gets a positive reward. And when it's not able to guess that word, it gets a negative reward. And that strategy, because of just the amount of GPU compute we have, can be extended into kind of billions and billions of iterations. And that's how we're able to train these models.
okay, great. Lots more questions coming in about DocEquity, fees, integration. We'll send you some show notes on this. This has been accredited by the Law Society for CPD hours, right, Shannon? So everybody will get credit for the hours for attending today. But we are approaching the top of the hour too. Anything else that you're in, Shannon?
No, that's great. Thanks for mentioning that, Russ. So it's 1 hour of professionalism content for anyone who's wondering about their hours. And I just want to thank Jerry and Ed once again for joining us and sharing, and of course for all of your support for this event. It was really great having you today and looking forward to working with you more. I don't personally work with this tool, so I'm not on the legal side of things, but I've heard so much great feedback from our team. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Russ. Thank you, Shannon and Ed. Yeah.
Thanks for joining, Ed. Thanks for joining. Jerry. Had a great conversation today, and I look forward to hearing more.